mentioned that if the classical influences didn't really have any impact on how you conceived these pop songs. When did they start for you? And were they like lyrically driven? Was it about expressing something in words? Or was it about the vibe of the pop genre?
Well, the first song I ever wrote, I remember I was about 13 years old, still in middle school, and a friend of mine who wasn't very close with, she was more of a classmate, had committed suicide. And at that age, I didn't really know how to deal with it. It was just trying to understand it and process it. I mean, we were both so young. And for some reason, my intuition was to write a song. And so to answer your question, yes, it was driven by this need to express something. And I could do that through both the lyrics that I was writing and also through the music. Now when I write, it's often music driven. Usually melodies come to me and I explore that and I think about what theme I want to build around that. But sometimes I have a concept and I think to myself, okay, I want to write about this, and the music comes after. So it's a little bit of both, and I think there's beauty in the flexibility of it all.
When I think of pop music from a purely musical standpoint, I think of 1-5-6-4 harmonic progression. Do you find that that's kind of at the core or basis, and then you steer around it, or do you just avoid, this kind of convention?
It's a balance. There's definitely your standard pop chord progressions, and then because I am conscious of the fact that they've been used a bajillion times, I do sometimes try to find other avenues, and I might land on a chord and think, okay, I know this is going to resolve here, but maybe I could go somewhere and take it in a different direction.
Miami Chopin competition was right before COVID, so this must have been like you're on cloud 9, and then suddenly every concert is canceled. And so was that related to your turning back to pop music and developing new songs?
A little bit. For me, writing pop music is a completely different mind space than classical music. Classical music requires such precision and focus. And with pop, it's almost the opposite. It's just letting the creativity totally take control. And for me, it works best when I'm in a very relaxed state and can just let my ideas populate and take me wherever. And so because of the pandemic, because all of a sudden I had no responsibilities to classical music, I just had all this inspiration suddenly, and the ideas took off. And maybe it was the time being quarantined and stuck at home with my family as much as I love them. I was just ready to let go of some things, and so the ideas came, and I was writing a lot.
It seems like you can much more directly express your sort of everyday life experiences and feelings through this medium, unlike classical music interpretation, right? I mean, it's so dependent on the score, the composer's intentions, trying to reveal what they are expressing. So do you kind of feel like when you're a classical musician, it's less about yourself and more about the music, and when you're a pop musician, it's actually more about yourself and less about the details of the music?
In a way, yes, and maybe that's why I'm so drawn to pop music as well. Maybe that's like my yin and my yang, right? I have one place where I can be literally personal and put everything into words, and then on the other side, I have this opportunity to express and put my personality and emotions into somebody else's work. And so between the two, then you get the full spectrum of who I am as a person.
Your love for singing predates your piano lessons, though, right? I mean, you were singing coming out of the womb, it seems like.
Yes, I was singing in daycare, so my parents say. There were reports.
Is it true you knew all of Sound of Music, every number, when you were 18 months old?
Pretty much. That was the first movie I watched, and I've been a fan ever since. I just love to sing. What can I say?
The elephant in the room here is that you're giving a little recital at a kind of important hall pretty soon. and I wanted to plug that. If anyone's in New York City and you've heard of Carnegie Hall, Avery will be playing there at Wild Recital Hall. Can you tell us, when is this concert and what are you playing on this program?
This concert is on November 30th, and it's being presented by the National Chopin Foundation of the United States. I will be opening the program with Bach's A minor English Suite, followed by Beethoven Sonata 109. The second half is all Chopin. It features Chopin's first ballade in G minor, the E minor Etude Opus 25 number 5, the B major Nocturne Opus 62 number 1, the Opus 56 Mazurkas, and to finish the program, the B flat minor Scherzo.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the first ballade. Everyone knows it, everyone loves it, everyone wants to play it. You managed to pace yourself and not get too crazy in that A major climax in the middle of the piece. Do you have a narrative in mind when you're playing the first ballade? Do you have a sense for that overarching structure? And how the hell do you play the coda so well?
Two good questions. I don't have a narrative in mind, but I am very conscious of the arc because it's one of those pieces where it's very easy to lose that sense of structure. And so I have thought a lot about how each part connects and fits and relates to each other. In terms of the coda, the infamous coda, slow practice is the key, and I've spent many hours just working through it slowly, hands separately, bringing out the melody. I think it's very important not to just play it like a cacophony of notes, but it is melodic, it is beautiful music, as intense as it is.
Just get sloppy, because like I practiced it a lot. I play it okay, but I always get tired and tense like halfway through it, and I think it's these stupid things. How do you make sure you're staying loose but also accurate?
Well, I get tired too, and it requires stamina, but I would say ideally that your arm is relaxed, but your fingertips still maintain that intensity so that you get that sound. Obviously you don't want your whole arm to be tight, but fingertips are really like, for some reason it's popping up in my mind, like the famous picture of E.T. like touching. But it's like that. It's like everything is in your fingertips, and then the power comes from your arm and your back.
So for those keeping track at home, you want to play this whole coda to Chopin's first ballade better, just watch E.T. And that should help. But I'm glad you said that because I noticed you play with such great posture, and there really is a sense that from your shoulder to your fingertip is a kind of single unit. Are you actually conscious of that, like that you're sort of moving as one unit when you're playing, and how does your posture sort of support that?
Posture is important to help be relaxed. It's also important just for stage presence in general. People don't like to talk about it, but what you see affects the impression that your performance gives. In terms of movement, I've never really picked apart my movement. Obviously, I think about it in terms of how it affects my playing and sound and technique. And then part of that is just intuition and something that comes naturally. And that's why every pianist moves differently.
So you mentioned stamina, and you're playing the Bach A minor English Suite. It's a piece that requires stamina. I mean, the 4 or 5 minute prelude just nonstop. Are you conscious of sort of preserving your energy when you're playing this work?
Not preserving energy, but concentration. Because the thematic material repeats so much that it's important to always be in the moment and really think about how to vary it and to bring out voicing. That's so important in Bach's music. And going back to what we were saying before about voicing in Chopin, I think a lot of that stems from my work studying Bach's music, which I really love and enjoy. And in fact, the first thing after the Chopin Miami competition, the first thing I learned and played was the Bach suite, because I was like, I have to get my hands on Bach just for some mental clarity and to just recenter myself after all of this Chopin. So yes, in this period it's very difficult because of the perpetual motion, and so it's what helps me also is to be organized in my thoughts and the structure of the piece, know the A and the B and the return, because that's kind of your roadmap, and so you don't get lost in this cycle of notes.
Sequences in the second or third page are just like the most beautiful.
They're so beautiful.
What do you do when a passage is so beautiful you just want to savor every moment, but you have to play it cool, right?
Yeah.
You can't.
Oh my goodness.
It's about that balance between just, I want to milk every moment. I don't want to leave this measure ever. But you have to. It's part of a big landscape.
Sometimes I run into places like, for example, in the third ballade, in the middle, there's the one part that's just da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum, pa. Every time I get to it, I'm like, well, what can I do with it? And sometimes I spend hours just practicing and playing it a million times, trying to milk everything out of it, and then ultimately in the performance you just have to, like you said, you have to play it cool, you can't overdo it. But hey, in the practice room, you can enjoy all you want.
I just want to talk about Beethoven 109 for a sec. Perhaps his most beautiful piece. Nobody ever says that about Beethoven. We don't think of Beethoven in terms of beauty. Of course, it's beautiful, but it's everything else that Beethoven brings to the table. What is special, challenging, and unique about this piece for you?
The soulful quality is so special. And what makes it challenging is how the movements, and also within the third movement, the variations, how they all relate to each other. It's incredibly important with this piece to have a clear structure. It's a deceivingly difficult piece, and it's hard to control.
What is so challenging about these variations? Because they're so sublime, they're so special, and they seem like they're very approachable, but they're really not.
What's challenging is that they all require a very different technique, and they're all so different from each other. So approaching each variation is like approaching an entirely different work in a way. But of course, you have to tie them all together.
That's what people say about Beethoven sonatas to begin with. Each one is their own universe. So it's almost like within this universe of 109, there's all these many universes.
Little galaxies, right? And so it is very important to have a clear sense of even that space in between variations, how much time, how, as a performer in that moment, you're able to transition and get into the right character and mindset for the next variation.
There's this sense that we want to be profound in a piece like that. But then if you're trying to be profound, you probably never are. So do you feel like just the subtlest little timings can suddenly make a simple phrase into something extraordinary?
Absolutely. I mean, timing is everything, and it does come down to those milliseconds sometimes, or just the way you breathe, that can change everything.
Well, you have wonderful control over your milliseconds in all of the pieces that I've heard you play. I'm a recent new fan of yours. It's really just been wonderful watching your success in the Chopin competition, and looking forward to listening to the album. I unfortunately can't make your Carnegie Hall debut, but I hope that some of our listeners who are watching and in the tri-state area can buy a ticket and show up. One last question. How do you get to Carnegie Hall?
The Amtrak. It's nice being in Philly and you're only an hour and a half train right away.
All right, Avery, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me and for joining Tone Base for a really wonderful conversation. Best of luck to you.
Thanks so much.
A note with pedal makes a beautiful decrescendo, but it's a bit more vibrant and it lasts just a bit longer. It floats, it has a little bit of life to it. I'd like to discuss a very big issue, which is the pedal and the piano. Any number of composers and pianists have said that the pedal is the soul of the piano, and it is. Without the pedal, we really would be nothing. But why and how to use it and why to use it when is extremely important at all levels of musical development. In this segment on pedaling, you won't see my feet. It's not about my feet. Sometimes I'm talking about pedaling to a student, they start looking at my foot. I said, don't look at my foot. You can look at my foot. That's not what it's about. You really pedal by ear. Now, first of all, let's go to some very basics. You know that there's this pedal sticking out and you press down on it with your foot. A couple of quick pieces of advice, straight from the great teacher Regina Levine, whom I studied, who, at the time I studied with her at Juilliard, she was the most famous piano teacher in the world and was 90 years old. And at lessons at her home, she would get down on the floor, have you take your shoe off, and watch how you pedaled. Now, I'm not going to do that for you, but I'm going to tell you what she was looking for. Number one, she felt that you should pedal with the ball of your foot, not with your toes. So that's why she wanted to see with you. So in other words, you need a certain amount of strength to press that down with control. She also felt, and we'll get into this in more detail, the foot should never leave the pedal because of many reasons. When the pedal is up and your foot's in contact with it, it's good to know that it's there. The moment your foot loses contact, all sorts of mischief can happen. Here are the two biggest mischiefs I know of, both of which make noise that might not be audible in the 10th row of a concert hall, but it might affect your ability to control the sound. The number one is lifting your foot and stomping on the pedal. You won't see it, but you'll hear it. The other one is when the pedal is down and you let it up very fast and you hear this noise. Thud. Now that's not so serious in either case, but if you're trying to pedal smoothly in a difficult piece like the Waldstein Sonata, and you let the pedal come up too fast and with a bit of a thud, you're actually going to get a break in the beautiful smooth sound, because there's no way you can play that theme of the Waldstein well without the pedal on a modern piano, because there aren't enough fingers to make a good legato. You need the help of this pedal instrument. Now, if you lift the pedal too fast, you're going to get a series of square sounds. Bum, 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 bum. You're not going to get that nice. You have to let them meld. Also, even I've heard very good pianists, even at the Chopin competition in 2015 on the jury, that would use their foot as a rhythm section. They're playing a waltz and they're pounding in time. By the time you're playing a piece like that, you shouldn't be pounding on the pedal unconsciously. Just like I say about rushing, slowing down, or bad pedaling. If you want to do it, that's fine. But don't do it simply because it's a bad habit that you're not conscious of. Because that's distracting your energy and attention from the musical results. Another thing is that pedal does some obvious functions. It turns disparate notes into a harmony. There's no way we can reach those with our hand, and yet with the pedal we can still hear them, because the pedal makes all the strings of the piano vibrate and it increases the resonance. A note without pedal makes a beautiful decrescendo. A note with pedal makes a beautiful decrescendo, but it's a bit more vibrant and it lasts just a bit longer. It floats, it has a little bit of life to it. Now we want both pedaled and unpedaled sound in music making. Pedal also connects tones, especially tones that you can't reach with your hand. If you're playing Chopin's Last Nocturne, you can actually connect the tones with your fingers. In many passages, you can't connect them with your fingers, and you need to use the pedal as a blending agent. Similarly, you can play a scale legato, where you connect the tones. When we do that with our fingers and not with our feet, we let, I'm exaggerating, we let the tones blend. Why do we do that? Because if we lift that tone, if we don't connect them, there's no overlap, and all you hear is the strong attack of the piano. The piano only has an attack. It has whatever sustain it has, and then it has the end, which you control. So you can only really control the attack and the end. You can't do anything once it's down. I don't care if you vibrate or jump on it or get tense or are very expressive, which is natural. It's not going to help the actual sound. So you can also do it with pedal, where you can connect. See, if I pedal too fast, it's going to... Each tone's going to go boom, boom, boom. Whereas if I overlap them a bit, you get not legato, you get the illusion of legato. So you can do legato with your hands or with the pedal or with a combination of both. You know, there's a lot of argument about that you should be able to do the legato with your fingers and not with the pedal. Well, by the time you're playing pieces by Chopin, you're going to really have to. Originally, there was a lot of polyphonic music.
Ну вот наоборот. Ну. Да. Вот это и есть. Так не наоборот или да? Вот это и есть.
Ой, да,
Ну вот это и был он самый. А в чем проблема-то их наоборот? Да. Понимаю. Чего тогда? всем, говорит. Ну и что? Вся игра. Непонятно. Да-да. Да, наоборот.